My own journey always reflects my own journey and many, many, many thousands and thousands of hours of research over the last 9 years. And I'm an avid learner and researcher. So I'm constantly learning and getting new insights, and from amazing people that I know, like Loretta and Simone and Marcia, who's not going to be joining us anymore, but she was intimately involved in this, and with everybody, we all learning together. So one thing I realized, because when I was away last week and the week before, and after our last session, not the talking one, the one before that, I went to bed and I experienced some very difficult emotion. It was actually, I think it was regret, actually. I have gone through the emotions of regret, loneliness, grief, terror, and desolation. If desolation's an emotion, in 2 weeks. It's like, so I've got a few go-tos when if I don't know what to do, like, and it usually happens in the middle of the night. I'm like, I've got one or two books that I go to because I know they talk about self-sabotage, or they talk about how to do this stuff, actually. So I went to Robert Augustus Master's book because I was feeling something, I didn't even know what. Then it became loneliness. Then my body started reacting. And I couldn't sleep. And then my mind started chitter-chattering and over-analyzing and disaster creating and self-judging. And I was like, nah. Okay, go to the book. So I pressed the section in Robert Augustus Master's book called Bringing the Shadow Out of the Darkness. I've put together a list for you, you'll see in this presentation, so you can go back to it, of suggested podcast episodes and a couple of books. That book is amazing. So I went to the section in the book there, which I've already listened to that book 3 times, I think, but he's got a section there on how to be in pain, because I was in physical pain and emotional pain. How to be in pain, how to do hard but not suffer. So I was like, okay, I need to go and listen to that. And it was revelationary, or let's just say deeply insightful, because it's amazing how we can listen to the same thing at different times and get what we need. And sometimes it just kind of goes in, but it goes past because it's not what we need then. But that's exactly what I needed that night. And I was like, so. And then Xavier Dagbar's work, I've also put the name of his book there. He's got a podcast, he's got a Facebook group. His work has very much informed my recent journey because he's very much into integration. Integration of the opposites, being with the hard, knowing what to do with it, because it's the only place where the transformation lies. But it's not easy, and I've been doing far too much suffering, and I actually didn't realize until 2 weeks ago when I listened to that book again. People would say to me, like, Marcia, Antoinette, it's hard, but you don't have to suffer. And I've been saying that, but I didn't know what was making me suffer. So that night, I realized I had to lean into it, feel it, do the hard stuff, the physical and the mental and the emotional, but I didn't need to suffer. So... And then I just considered since then, actually, it's all about the opposites. It's all about opposites. It's all about the law of, I don't know, there's some law of polarity, which is one of the 7 universal spiritual laws. But this word opposites came up, and it keeps on coming up in this parachute process for me. And Xavier Dagbar's talking about it all the time, and Robert Augustus Masters talked about it. It's not one or the other. It's always both. It's so the law of opposites. Loretta and I decided to come up with our own sort of language, although it's not anything brand new. It's the same as the law of polarity, but a lot of what I looked up on the law of polarity says okay, there are difficult feelings, and then there's peace and joy, and there's hard, and then there's equanimous. But everything I looked at said, okay, you focus on the peace, and you vision towards that, and you start visualizing that, and then the hard, I don't know, the hard goes away, but it doesn't actually. That's one of the things we've been spiritualized and self-help-lized into, or I was, until 9 years ago, when I realized I'd fallen into that whole thing of not feeling my feelings, not leaning into the hard, not feeling the pain. But I did my shadow work badly, actually, when I look back, and I nearly got into a lot of trouble. I did it badly. I went far too much in that self-judgment space, self-beration, self-hatred. I got stuck in a lot of, because when you have to look at, Simone and I quite often talk privately, and so, well, a lot of us do, but when you have to look at me, Antoinette, I have borderline personality. I'm very far into recovery, but about 2 years ago, I had to sit and look at these aspects of myself, how I created my own chaos, how dissatisfied I always was, how self-critical I am, but I couldn't stop all the looping. I couldn't stop. It got worse and worse and worse, and I got deeper and deeper into my own shadow because I was so shocked at what I saw. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I'm like, I'm brave. I'm going to look at myself. But the more I looked at myself, the more my mind habitually started self-criticizing. And then I got into a loop, and I got very, very sick last year to the point of death. And that somehow became my turning point yet again. I was like, and then when we just make a decision to do this inner work with the polarities, with the opposites, the leaning into the hard, to rebirth the light, and we start integrating. Like, it's all about integration, not one or the other. It's about integrating them. When we just show up to take a micro step to do this work, it's incredible how we get supported. It's like Esther said, she's now found some person online who's giving her the tools and the perspective or whatever that she needs to do some emotional work, which it is quite hard. Like, where do I start? What do I do? So I have found, since especially last year, when I realized I'd got myself into trouble, I realized what was going on. I realized also these feeder energies, the dark energies out there, attached to our they like become feeder energies on our misery and our self-hatred and our anguish and our not enough. But by the same token, we also have to be in those things and feel those things. So that's why we actually need really, 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 really good wisdom knowledge. Because it's the wisdom knowledge that actually saved my bacon, to be honest. Because by the grace of the divine and my higher self, it will come towards us what we need, whether it's the hub or it's another course or a book or a podcast that randomly turns up on your phone. I mean, that's where Geshe, I said, the magic starts happening. And it doesn't always seem like magic because we don't get the job, or our relationship's still dodgy, or we're still in terrible grief, as Rob says. But suddenly things start, if we start looking for the magic in the unexpected and everyday things, and we see that it's all about opposites and it's about integration. I hope I'm making sense here. Then we start doing what I heard Wayne Dyer said years and years ago, and he's been dead for years, as you know, and I've got this on my fridge. Thank you, God, for everything, but I really didn't get it until the last year. It's like, well, it's tough. I'm bereft. I'm lonely. I'm so toxic in my head sometimes. Yesterday I had a very difficult day. I went into all kinds of patterning and insidious very nuanced self-sabotage. I wasn't overeating or anything, but I did some really weird stuff in hindsight, actually, and I dysregulated myself. I went to bed in that automatic habitual mind state of mind, my automatic state, but I've rewired, retraining all the time. It takes time, and one step at a time. I went to bed and I was self-berating. I was like, look at you again, self-rejection, self-judgment, and then my body reacts. Someone will tell you that because someone studies this, she's trained in it. The brain starts freaking out, starts self-judging more, and then my body is not okay. And I can't sleep, and I'm like, okay. So I know what's happening here, and it's very hard to stop that looping. But knowing that that's a habitual pattern of mine, knowing that I have some go-tos, like I've got Robert Augustus Masters and Carolyn Mace's book. I've got a couple of blankies at the moment. We need wisdom, knowledge blankies and blankie tools. I don't know where that word came from, and they change over time. That's the thing. We learn a thing. Like 20 years ago, I might have learned something from Buddhism or something from New Age, and nothing I learned or we learned or know is a waste. But it's like as we go through this layered process and we start doing more of the work and we start feeling the hard things and leaning into them, starting to integrate the opposites, doing the hard, but knowing that on the other side of that is the grace and the joy and all that. Eventually, sometimes it takes time. It's just incredible. We start learning to trust our intuition more. We start realizing what we need comes towards us, and the harder it gets, the more opportunity there is actually to rebirth. It doesn't mean it's easy. So it can be particularly tough for me, and that's just how my life is in this incarnation, or if you don't believe in reincarnation, in this life, that's how my life is. I don't have a lot of external pressures right now, but my internal stuff is more than enough for me to deal with. That's why I graciously actually didn't end up with a husband or children or anything. And I am better. It's a word that's it creates such polarity, that word, but I am better than I've ever been. Why? Because I'm okay when I'm not okay. And since 2 weeks ago, what I'm going to share with you tonight from Robert Augustus Masters and a few other people is I finally can be with the hard without the suffering. Last night the suffering came, but I recognized it, and I knew what to do with. I went to my blankie, which is this book, picked up the section on self-sabotage, and I re-listened to it, and I went, So I want to share with you, what came to me to put just in this presentation, because there's a lot. So to go back to Marcia's awakening and empowering the healer in you, this is not a step-by-step process. It's not where am I, what can I do, how can I do it. It's a constant cyclical process of death and rebirth. And sometimes we need a respite, we need a rest. Then we think we've done something, then it goes to another layer. But there are some fundamental principles and truths, which we've called wisdom knowledge, to differentiate them from the noise out there. We've got to cut through this white noise out there. And because I started following people like Paul Levy and Xavier Dagbar and Carolyn Mace recently, and Robert Augustus Masters and Faulkner, they are just cutting through that white noise that just creates this expectation in us that it's a one and done, that it must, we're striving all the time for the good. We're not going to get to the good without the discomfort. So we need to do something differently, because nothing changes if we don't change. But what do we do? I mean, really, it can be very, very confusing, because all of us that are showing up on this group are being called to do deep inner work at this time, and not just for ourselves, but for the collective, truly. I'll show you at the end. And we need to start clearing and releasing. But where do we start? And when Marcy and I brainstormed this, and this model came out of it, it absolutely has to start with gaining empowering knowledge. So if there's anything we can bring to you is that, and I'm not saying it's perfect, I'm not saying we're not the only people in the world by any means, but between Loretta and I, we have integrated with a lot of care, curation, thought, information that could be empowering. Because if we know what's going on, if we know what the map is, then we can start navigating our journey. So we talk all the time about self-awareness. I'm going to go into that again tonight. We're going to go back to the same things over and over again. And you might go, oh my goodness, we got this, we did this, we've done this slide, although these are all different slides. The thing is, as Loretta said, one of the most dangerous things that happens to us on this journey, we have the knowledge, we know it, and then we think we've done it. And I was the worst culprit, and I still can be. I'm like, oh, that woman, look what she's saying. I knew that 20 years ago. And I'm like, can you just listen, Antoinette, with new ears? And if you really do know it, let it go. But maybe there's some different angle or some more depth, or maybe you need to revisit it. So we are going to keep on not bringing the same old stuff, but if you go, oh, here we are on the self-awareness thing again. It's about looking at it from different angles, different perspectives, maybe new depth. And so, yeah, so we're going to look at, I mean, it all goes together, but we're going to look at that orange bit there. Nothing changes if we don't, because we've taken a good hard look at start where you are. I think you've all had a really good look at where you are, and you've all been so amazing and so brave to look honestly at where you're at. And that's such a, we don't celebrate what we see as small wins, because we see it as small because we still feel stuck. We still feel broken. We still feel self-critical. We're still sick. We're in pain. The car alarm's not working. You're not sleeping. I haven't slept for 2 nights. And now I go, and Simone taught me, this is a beautiful, simple little thing. Just touch your heart and tell your brain, it's okay, I'm safe. I'm safe. Right now I'm freaking out, self-critical. I'm probably not going to sleep, but it's okay, I'm safe. And there's an opportunity in this, and I can lean into the hard without it taking me out. So let me get more to that. Just a reminder very quickly of this. We did this right in the beginning. Who our real nature is, our divine self, our higher self, we're born that. And that's why a lot of the spiritual and self-help stuff out there speaks the truth, but it doesn't go into the depths of how to do this unconscious work, or the work of individuation that Jung calls it, of bringing the unconscious to the fore, bringing it out of hiding, because it runs our show. It's 90%. That's neuroscience. And until we know what's going on, we can't change it. And that's why it gets harder as it gets better, or before it gets better. So every single one of us, it's a human thing. And those of us who've had trauma, and that's a lot of people, it's even more intense. So we all know that we're a spark of God, and we're part of this quantum soup, this benevolent higher power, call it what you want, love or source. And we all know intellectually the stuff that we grew up. If we were lucky and we didn't have some serious trauma in utero childhood, we still grew up with a lot of conditioning, socialization, and stuff that just happened that covered up. Let's say covered up, I'm just using language because you can't really put language to this. And we start living our lives from that unconscious. Remember, we talked about that. It's on the podcast. We say this over and over. Because we go, in fact, we're going to go into an emotional triangle thing that Simone shared with me. So I'm not going to go too much into the House of the Horror stuff. But that's when we start living in a way that our ego thinks it's keeping us safe and loved, but we have no idea. We're doing all kinds of stuff that's underpinned by feelings we're not feeling, or shame we didn't even know we had, and we don't even know we're acting out. We're just living our lives. And then it gets very uncomfortable. And we get broken. Most human beings get broken. Whether it's addiction or illness or, I don't know. And I've been broken more than once, but we can get broken open, believe me. But that's when it gets hard and dark, and it's also the real birthing ground. And then we're going to really start diving into this. And I can also guide you for those that want to go at a different pace or focus on different things. Simone, myself, if any of you have found resources that are working, our job as individuals right now, especially at this time, because we're doing it for everybody, we like first wavers. This is not, it takes courage and it takes a lot of resilience to do this journey. So we've got to deconstruct what we're not. So we've got to start recognizing all that 90% under the iceberg, and it's going to start coming up. And the ego gets terrified because the ego is here to keep us safe and loved. And so it starts feeling, Simone and I talk about this a lot, and Simone studied it, proper study. We start feeling really unsafe. We start feeling terrified, actually, if you meet. It's like, this is not safe because I'm not doing those coping strategies anymore, and it's scary. But yeah. So just a reminder, there's that model. Do you know how many times I saw this model before I got cancer, and how I just didn't get it. I got it intellectually. If you look at that 90%, that's what's running our show until it starts becoming conscious. Until you make that part underneath, the 90% conscious, that's what the thing on the left says by Carl Jung. It's going to run your life and you're not going to know it. You're going to call it fate, or you're just going to go. So who we really are is where healing lies, but who we've become, not by our own faults, but just by life, conditioning, even past lives maybe. So our job now is to, which is not for sissies, but none of us are sissies, and it really gets more divine, gets more interesting, it gets harder, it gets more magical. It's just, that's the law of opposites and integration. So I think many of you probably know this. I know Annie told me this stuff already years ago when I met her, because she'd read it and studied it. I'm sure most people on this group know it, but I've really embedded this knowing in me, especially in the last year, in the last couple of years. But we do not stay stuck in our trauma or our past or our dodgy upbringing or whatever it is, our broken relationships that hurt us. But we have to be honest and say to ourselves, this is neuroscience, as Simone will tell you. When we were in trauma as children, or in pain or distress or discomfort, it felt like completely unresolvable hurt. So what do we do when we're children? We move away from this pain, and we go into survival mode. We have to. That's how we survive, and it's appropriate. But those parts of ourselves then go into exile, or they get suppressed. They get frozen on our brain. Look, Simone knows a lot more than me, but I'm just trying to simplify it. And our ego starts creating strategies for us to cope, whether it's with our abandonment or our in utero, or even if we haven't had big trauma, we start developing all these coping strategies, which Loretta so beautifully talks about, and we start functioning in a way that makes our ego feel safe. But actually, it's the very stuff that doesn't keep us safe. So it's not about annihilating our ego. We need it, we need to be in fight and flight sometimes. But the end result is, until we know it, is that we have shadow stuff. The shadow stuff's the stuff that's hidden, or we don't want to look at, or we push away, or we reject. Society doesn't encourage us to. So I dissociated. I completely cut off. I dissociated completely. It was one of my coping mechanisms, not just connecting. I went into all kinds of coping strategies, which made me look very successful because I was a very functional, dysfunctional. I say that as a joke. I mean, I had amazing coping strategies. I studied a lot, I achieved, I traveled, but yeah. So, and that can be quite dangerous because we get applauded for all that stuff and we look good on the surface. And it's just our ego tries to keep us safe and loved, and it just doesn't know how to do it in the right way. So our job as adults is to realize that that past has informed our adulthood. And I've put an episode on there that Simone and I recorded about how in utero and childhood experience affect your adult health. But even though it's health orientated, this is about our lives. As adults, we have to understand that that past informed our present, not to stay stuck in it, but to know that that's possibly why it is why we have suppressions, avoidances, people pleasing, whatever. We even have things called near enemies. Go and listen to that episode. I put it on the list. I'm not going to go into it now, but it's fascinating. So if we explore our pain, and it can get hard, believe me, sooner or later we find ourselves settling into a sobering sense of okayness. This is Robert Augustus' words. This okayness doesn't disappear or disintegrate because we're having a very bad day. But this was a revelation for me, the difference between suffering and hard. I'm going to show you now. But just to say a little bit more, I love that picture, so I stole it. I was meant to pay for it. That's the one. There's an iStock thing there, but it just speaks so much to this paradox, to the polarity, because nature just naturally dies and rebirths and dies and rebirths without any drama. So our job is to start seeing and meeting the ego so that it doesn't run our show. That is our work. It's not to get rid of it, as many of the spiritual teachings will tell you. It's to integrate it so that it serves our divine self, and it can, and it doesn't run our show. So this I put the name of this book on the list. This book has been a very, very beautiful read for me. It's by a woman called Teresa Joseph. It's called Everyday Mystic. How to Find the Extraordinary in the Ordinary. And she had this analogy. Analogies always work well for me. She said the ego path is wide, but it's very rocky. It's full of rocks, and it's actually very difficult to travel, but it's so familiar. And its breath, it deceives us unconsciously. None of this is conscious until it is. So we keep on going back to that path, even when you start doing this work, like I have been for 9 years. I've been doing this work. I keep on going back onto that path because it feels safe, it feels comfortable, and it's wide. But she says it's very, very rocky. And we hit a rock and then we go, oh. And if we've been on this journey, then we get back onto that God path or the divine self path. And that path, she says, is a very narrow path. And I thought that was so interesting for me. But it's the place where the magic happens. And there's a very, very thin line, she says, that divides the two paths. So I often, when I find myself on that wide rocky path and I'm hitting a rock, I know I am when I'm suffering again and I'm self-hating or something, I'm going, okay, it's a thin line. And that doesn't always work sometimes, because that's almost can be seen as bypassing. But it's just a very beautiful analogy for me. So this comes from her book as well. And this was profoundly eye-opening for me. I've had her book for 8 years. I only read it last year, and I keep on diving into it. So I think we know this, but the way she put it here, she said, let's say on the left side is our ego. That's all the fear, control, avoidance, addiction, denial, you name it. Our ego-dominated living, which is not our fault. It's just the patterning we've gone into. And there's a lot of it. So I can't write it all there. And on the other side is love, or higher self, or God, the place where the magic, the everyday miracles, the flow, the equanimity, the peace, the joy, all of it lies. And the one thing we don't realize, but Jung also talks about it, is as we start tilting, so the more we do this work, we go more and more into the peace. The joy starts bubbling up. I mean, I never felt joy in my whole life until, I don't know, recently. And it comes up. And the next thing I find myself back in the self-criticism, I'm not good enough, suffering mode. And then this analogy really helps me because, of course, as we start doing more of the work of individuation or doing this inner work, and we're finding the good stuff, and the unconscious is coming up, and we're healing it, and we're doing another layer, and we're working with it, and what's going to happen? All the stuff from the unconscious, all that stuff on the left-hand side in the picture is going to come up and over, because that's how a seesaw works. So the more of the positive, I hate all this language, but the more of the inner work we do that makes us feel more peaceful no matter what, all of that, the more we do that. And the more we do this work with the unconscious, the more it's going to come tumbling over, of course, because it's healing. It's coming out. And then the mistake, the trap I fell into, how I didn't know this, we then feel like things are getting worse, not better. And this is a big, big insight, because Richard Rohr said, and I didn't get it until I saw this, he said there's about 9 stages of the soul's development, although he hates to stage them. He said by stage 3, we've got out of all that pure ego stuff, we've got into spirituality, some level of self-help and mindfulness. And then we start doing this work, and then things start getting tough. Exactly what she's saying here. And that's where many, many people backtrack. They either go, not many go back beyond 3, but a lot of people go back to 3. So they go up to 4, 5, 6 maybe. They're doing the work, and then it seems to get harder. They feel like they're more mad. They feel like they're suffering more. They're like, no, man, this stuff's not working. I'm going back to the gratitude journals. None of that's wrong. Loretta and I both meditate and do gratitudes and all kinds of things, but it can't be used to bypass doing this real work. And we tend to backtrack into that, or because we think we've gone mad, or it's all a mess now. But as Teresa Joseph said, and that's why the world is such a mess now, because this transition causes extreme amounts of chaos and turmoil for individuals and for nations, because the balance is shifting. So all this stuff in the world has actually probably always been going on, but it's all up and out now, and it feels so extreme. But actually, if you look at it from this perspective, it is chaotic and it is turmoil, because that is the birthing ground. It's the room for the better, if I can use that crazy stupid word. Okay, where's my next slide? Oh, I've lost my slides. There. So, you see, this is how life goes. It's so fascinating. Simone went, because I went to the Western Cape for 2 weeks, and Simone lives there, Simone in our group tonight. She came and spent a day with me. And we always, because Simone and I, it's our passion. This stuff's my life. It's my interest. And I have a very academic brain, and I love learning, and so does Simone. And Simone's very well trained, and I've done it all informally. So we always swap like stories and info. And she showed me this. She just drew it. And this model, it's so simple. I haven't looked it up, the details, who started it, what. But it just helped me so much, because there are these core emotions, and these are the ones listed here. I don't know who came up with these core emotions or why. Maybe one day someone can tell us. But if we feel these core emotions, which are fear, anger, sadness, disgust, joy, excitement, and sexual excitement, this is a psychological model, I think. Hilary Jacobs Hendel is a psychologist. That's when we drop down into this open-hearted state we're all desiring, of authentic self, of higher self. But because we've been conditioned, socialized, and we just don't, by and large, feel those emotions, anger, disgust, fear, um, we feel fear, but we don't really dive into it and work with it. What happens is we go round and round the loop at the top of that triangle where we stay in inhibitory emotions. And I did this my whole life until recently. Anxiety, shame. I can't see the other one there because the Esther, your name's in the way. But so we loop in anxiety. I think it's anxiety. Anyway, someone, you can look at the picture afterwards. Anxiety, shame. And then we start all these defense mechanisms because we shouldn't be in shame and that anxiety. We can be, but if we keep on looping and looping around in that, it's because we're not feeling these core emotions, and then we start doing defensive behaviors, whether it's overeating, people pleasing, guilt. Sorry, Simone Mariella said, Mariella knows this, it's guilt. Yeah, guilt, shame, and anxiety. I spent my whole life in there, and self-criticism and all that, sorting that out. And I realized I just wasn't feeling. Actually, I wasn't feeling the joy and excitement because I was in fear, but not really leaning into it, not feeling it. Anger is the most suppressed emotion on the planet, and it makes us sick, suppressed anger. Real grief, sadness, disgust. So that's just a little bit of information, okay? You don't necessarily have to do anything with it now, but know it. It was very helpful for me. So back to Robert Augustus Masters and this insight I finally got that night in Berrydale 2 weeks ago when I was suffering physically and mentally. Hard and pain are necessary, but suffering is not. And this is what he said. Real freedom is rooted in not pushing away the pain, but knowing how to relate to it, how to go through it, how to handle it. The more intimate we become with our pain, physical or mental or emotional, the less we suffer. So we need to go through the hard, feel the pain, but without the suffering. And I don't know. I clearly didn't get this till I got it. So pain is unpleasant, full stop. There's never going to be anything pleasant. It's hard. And we have an aversion to pain. You see, that's why we don't feel those emotions at the bottom of that triangle. We have a commonplace aversion, and we've been conditioned and discouraged actually from leaning into pain, be it physical, mental, and whatever. But this pain is where our healing lies, but the suffering is a problem, and that is something we're doing with our pain. So I wrote an example he put there because this example helped me really understand how I was not just in pain, I was suffering. My husband has left me and I'm really, really hurting. My heart is broken. That is pain. My husband has left me. I'm hurting terribly. My life's now over. I will never ever find love again. My mother's right. I should never have been born. That's suffering. So we feel like suffering keeps us close to our pain. So the mistake I made with my shadow work is I knew I had to be in the pain and the hard and feel it. But I just kept on being in the suffering all the time because my mind, our minds, it's a human thing, but mine's particularly bad at making up the story. So Loretta was trained by DeMartini. Actually, we were brainstorming this on Monday. Or the creative orientation is separate the drama from the data. So Loretta always says that, but I didn't really get it till this. We all talk about not going into our stories. So it's this thing that I do when I go, I've been doing this a lot. Yes, we must suffer if our husband leaves. Not suffer, listen to me, it's so inbred in me, the suffering thing. It's going to be hard if your husband leaves you or somebody dies or you've got cancer. There's no doubt. But what we do with that hard, I constantly, and I found myself again last night, but I brought myself back. I listened to his book again. We think suffering is keeping us close to our pain, because we know we're hurting, but in fact, suffering separates us from our pain. It prevents us from getting close to our pain. So that's just information, which was very helpful to me. So, let's just get back to what we do on this journey to, to navigate, actually, to live in the polarity and do the integration. And the key lies in bringing awareness to every single aspect of ourselves. And we know this intellectually, but the thing is that includes awareness of our disowned energies, the parts of us. I'm going to ask someone one night to give us a little 20 minutes on the parts theory. I didn't know about parts, but these different parts of ourselves. One tries to protect us, some of the parts just go into exile because they're too painful for us to even try and process. But these different parts of ourselves we may push away and not want to see. So we start observing ourselves and we observe that our life's a bit of a mess or this and that. But the thing is, we've got to also start seeing the ukari, and to start thinking about what we're thinking. And that's what that Robert Augustus Masters thing about suffering. I realized I'm the one for 9 years that has been thinking about what I'm thinking and watching my thoughts. But I had no idea how much I was looping into the catastrophe and the disaster. And that's a natural thing I'm always going to have to bring myself back from. It's a disaster and it's going to be a disaster. But this deep unconscious narrative going, it's like, because my deep unconscious wound, because my mother tried to abort me with a knitting needle in utero, and it wasn't her fault, but it was exceptionally traumatic. So I birthed with being in fight and flight and with this core underlying unconscious belief that I'm a piece of shit and I don't deserve to be here, I should just die. So uncovering that and having that come up has been quite hard for me, but it's been incredibly transformative. And now I'm like, yeah, I'm not a piece of shit. Sometimes I still think I am, but yeah. So look at your habits. Just start looking one moment, one tiny micro step at a time. It's not easy to do this. It sounds easy. Start looking at what you're thinking. Use your mind to see what you're thinking. How are you speaking to yourself and to others? What are your habits, patterns, and behaviors? What triggers you and how do you react? And that's where Loretta's thing is. What are you thinking? How does it make you feel? We can't do all this every moment of the day or even every day. But if you can just start bringing awareness so that the unconscious starts coming up into conscious awareness. And then the really, really hard part is not to self-judge and self-berate when that seesaw comes spilling over. But without that close observation and clear insight into how our minds are working, and this is a human thing, it's not just us, we're the ones that are brave enough to show up to do this work. And then the emotions that come with that, or the emotions that we're not feeling, and then the coping strategies, and then we loop back into look what I just did, and yeah. So we're going to go more and more all the time into tools and into more depth, but I'm still just kind of doing overview because this kind of overview took me years and years and years to get, and it's really helped me. So I hope it's of some value. Please, Loretta and I cannot tell you that we would be lying to you if we gave you the illusion this journey is easy and that it's quick. It's not. That's one of the pitfalls and the illusions we fall into all the time, and it's not. And we've been so spiritualized on every spiritual condition, and the self-help, so much of it has, and it doesn't make any of it wrong, but has made us believe that it's a one and done, or there can be a quick fix, or it's not going to go to different levels and layers. And also we need sabbaticals in between. We need rest. It takes time. It takes time. We got to just keep on going. one micro step at a time. I'm very impatient. A lot of us that have the courage to show up to do this work, we A-type personalities, we perfectionists, we want to go, 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 and we just have to keep on reminding ourselves one step, celebrate the small wins, and whatever you do, don't look backwards. Don't go backwards, no matter how tiny your forward step is, as long as it's a forward step. And to start seeing our hard feelings, the hard stuff, our mess ups. That's been the hardest thing for me. I've messed up, I've relapsed. I don't mean to alcohol, I mean with habits. I'm ill again. I mean, I've been close to death twice in my life already because of this kind of inner patterning, but I'm not dead and I'm better than ever. Broken can be forward movement. Failure is not failure if we don't learn, and Churchill said that. So we got to take cognizance that, I'm that overeating again, or I'm habitually self-criticizing, but to know that it's okay. This journey is like riding a bicycle. You don't learn to ride a bike one and done. You get on, you fall. I'm sure nobody didn't fall. We fell, we got back on. We fell, we got back on. We bruised our knee, we hurt ourselves, we broke our arm, even maybe we got back on, we got back on. And at one stage, we finally found our balance, the point at which we can stay upright and pedal. It's exactly the same with this journey. Hope that makes sense. So just some stuff we've already said, and I'm just going to reiterate it. Just these are just a few things. There's so many. But if what Robin said to me on a private message, and she said tonight, and if I look back on my journey, the thing that saved me, I can tell you right now, is wisdom knowledge. Until I got the right knowledge and the right tools, I was getting myself deep into some more shit, actually, unknowingly. So that's the passion to bring this. Everything has an incubation period. Nothing can be born before its time. I was born into a life where I was only going to start my real deep individuation journey in my mid 60s. And that seems like such a disaster. It seems too late. But I did my Gene Keys profile, and there it was, that I was birthed into this life to get there very late. So we can't rush this, and nobody can do it for you, but you have to do it yourself. You have to do it yourself, but you also can't do it alone. We need the right help. I didn't get the right help. And this help is a safe space. It's information. It will hold some space, bring some tools, but it's not coaching. Okay, it's not. But we can refer you to people if you want to go in depth into help. We need a burning desire. It's like running a marathon. That's the thing, Esther. You said to me, you don't understand that. What do you love? What is it going to cost? And what price are you willing to pay? That actually comes from a book that's more about how to achieve in business or that kind of success. But that's a truth that applies to everything. But somehow in self-help and this stuff, we don't think. If we want to run a marathon, we train, we suffer, we get up early, it's cold, it's dark, our muscles hurt. But we carrying on through it until we can run that marathon. So that takes a burning desire, it takes a passion, it takes focused intention. We must want the result more than we're afraid of discomfort. And that's, if the hub gives you nothing else other than that knowledge, just know, if you want the result, you're going to get discomfort. But that's where the results lie. So we have to challenge ourselves constantly beyond our comfort zones, whether it's, I don't know, changing the relationships we're in because they're toxic for us now, the ones that never used to be.
Can I say something just after
Yeah.
you finish about it? Because
Say
that's
it
not...
now. Please say it now.
Well, I was saying something about this love, what you love. That is the big question here. What is love? I'm not talking about loving a person, loving what you do, craving something. I'm not talking about that. That through the whole, all of this is extremely helpful. But what I've been practicing for a long, long time, but that doesn't, exonerate, I think that's what the word, one of the work here on earth. We are love. We are everything already what we're striving for. So,
Yes, but we have to
so
return.
it's not, we don't have to clench and work and all the time. This comes up all the time. It's letting go. It's sort of it's not this, oh yeah, yes, in a sense, yes, we have to work, but in another sense we have to stop working.
Yeah, no,
We have to
actually,
stop striving.
that is such a beautiful perspective and wisdom. So it's my language, maybe I use a specific type of language, but it's not about fixing ourselves and doing the work. It's not. So, but the work is, so maybe work is the wrong word, is to reunite with who we really are.
Yes,
To become that, but
exactly.
we cannot
Yeah.
become that and fully be that without doing the hard feelings, without having the unconscious stuff changing. Unless we're, even Eckhart Tolle, who will tell you, or Buddha, they'll tell you one day they sat under a Bodhi tree, or Tolle will say, one day it all changed. But I read a post of his recently when I was doing research on the Dark Knight. He said people don't see the 10 years before that.
Yeah.
When he did this, he was suicidal. He was. So that's what I mean about being
Yes.
does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's what that's what I've come to see in all those years, that we need to feel, because that's why we're here on earth. We are here to feel all the feelings there are to feel, because we can't outside of this body. Don't ask me why, but that's the insight I got from many, many, many different teachers, and from observing, and just like you, just reading and hearing and everything, and make mistakes. But it doesn't mean that it's extra hard now. It's maybe one of the hardest times, and I curse it many times. But then, okay, then that's there. Then that's also valid, you know?
So, well, I mean, yeah, there's a slide coming up. We are divine embodied human beings. It's about being in the body. It's about,
Yeah.
yeah, it is about feeling our feelings. And so the knowledge, the interesting thing is to that knowledge is pure truth. But, well, there's no but. It's just that reuniting and the integration, it's all about integration.
Mm.
Integrate
Yeah.
our programming and our unconscious that is so hidden often until it reveals is how we, so it's both. That's why I use the word, maybe I'm focusing too much on the disaster and the hard and the work, because that's how I tend to talk, because that's how my mind goes, oh, we have to do the hard work. But I have moments where I'm in complete union with God and I'm in joy. But I've had to, and I think the human journey is over the years to work with the hidden bits and the suppressions and feel the hard feelings. And on the back of that has come joy now and peace. And I maybe talk too much about how much I'm in the heart. I am now at this stage of my life. Doesn't mean it can sometimes still get very tough, but I'm okay all the time. And sometimes I'm in incredible peace and joy, and my body's always not okay physically. I mean, we're all going to get sick and die or just die, but our bodies react so much to the suppressions or the stuff that we're. So that knowledge that you've got, that wisdom, is exactly what I'm saying here. But there's a nuance and a subtlety and a perspective that just knowing that, as you know, and also it goes to different stages and levels in and of itself. It doesn't make us peaceful or happy, does it?
No.
But it, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. You're a wise. The reason some of us are really struggling is also because we're lights. We're bright lights. We're wise. We are going to be on the bathroom floor. I know lots of people are, but maybe some of us it's amplified for me that as I got closer to my soul self, because the ego gets nervous, it gets terrified. My ego gets terrified every time. It doesn't trust even God. It doesn't feel safe anywhere. So that's why it gets harder for me as it gets more godly. I don't know if that makes sense.
Same here. Yeah, very
So
recognized.
actually, that's what I've really learned from Xavier Dagbar and Paul Levy and guys like that, is the more we find the light, the closer we get to God. And Carolyn Mace has written a book called The Courage to Confront Evil. I've put the name in the list here. The thing is, the more we become that and who we really are, the more the ego feels incredibly unsafe. It feels so scary. It's terrifying, actually, for me. And then these dark energies, evil is real. Carolyn Mace says there's two things people refuse to look at in our modern world for a long time, is evil and prayer. So you don't have to believe in prayer or be Christian or anything, but so much out there is saying, oh, there's no, the darkness is those human beings over there, and it's the aliens, and we've all got it in us. And the more we shine our light, the more we start connecting with who we really are. My ego I did a parachute. Actually, on the bottom I put ego, on the top I put God. Let me tell you what came up in that parachute. I'll actually share it on the group. I realized I feel so unsafe. I felt so unsafe, Esther. In that top space was God and equilibrium and all this stuff. And I'm like, that is the space that I feel incredibly unsafe in, because my ego's going, really? 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 This is not even a real thing. It's just a... And of course the God is in us. Have a look at this. It's like... So divine embodied human beings, that's what you were just saying. And that's actually Lee Harris's term. And Teresa Joseph was saying, she said, and this is the truth, which you've just articulated, but we've got to embed it now, embody it, and live it, is that we are divine embodied human beings. We're in a body. It's a fragile body at times, and we are going to get sick, and we've got mental states. And so this is where again the integration comes. Body and mind is unified with the divine. Therefore, our body and minds are sacred. And I've been one of those humans that she wrote there. We see ourselves as physical bodies, and we see our minds. Our body and our mind is us. And then we see our divine self. This is what I was doing, as an outmost layer, ethereal layer. Or worse yet, as divinity being somewhere out there, as a completely detached from myself or ourselves. And then she said, what if we view the ego in the outer layer? This is very interesting. I've never heard anyone say this. What if we see the body, the mind, the divine as us? Because it is. We are that. And what if the ego, if we just put the ego on the outer layer, could this be the first step to integrating the ego? I don't know. It's just it's quite a yes. We've been chasing Carolyn Mace's book, she says it straight. That book's brilliant, The Courage to Confront Evil. She said these are just the episodes I put, which are specific, maybe for right now, some YouTube clips and the books that I think it cuts through the noise. Robin, you'll recognize this logo. So Carolyn Mace, this I took directly out of the Courage to Confront Evil. She said, we are living in a time, it's not a tribal time. We are living in, we are here to usher in this age of light we all talk about. That means we've got to go inside. It's an inside-out job. We can't look outside of ourselves. She used the word revolution is to set us free from the bonds of our ego and give birth to our higher self. Now we know that. So ushering in this light starts with us. But she said something which is so interesting. It's not tribal. It's an individual time we live in. And the thing is, we live in a society still that is tribal. So those of us that start doing this work, we start feeling alienated or odd or out or misunderstood. Or Robin and I have often talked about this. I started staying at home. For years and years I stayed at home. I felt misunderstood. I felt like a complete outlier. I felt like I wasn't of this human race because I seemed to see the truth differently and speak it because I'm very loud-mouthed. And it's not meant to be tribal. And she said the thing is, we all still running in tribes, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't have a family or a community, and all of that's important. But this is an inside-out individual journey. And it's interesting, Jung called it individuation. So, and one thing we really need to know, if we want to start a love revolution in the world, it starts within us, and every single one of us. I've gone and researched this because I don't take comments like this lying down because they sound very bypassy. Every single person who does the work at this time, it's a word, I don't know what else to use, of shifting the balance in us, of integrating our dark and light, seeing our own evil, because we all got it in it. So interesting, she talks about her own in that book. Not evil, but how we do things which could lead to us being one of those evil people we all like. So yeah, it's so those people who go, I don't know why I'm here, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know what am I doing here. This is why we're here. Anybody who's on this group, we are here to start a love revolution, but it's a singular journey, action. That's what gets hard in our families or our tribes or I'm a complete alien in my family.